This crowd rises to its feet. Vaccaro slammed it home. Perfect! Garland went to the lane, lobbed to Mobley. Pow! And Allen blocked the shot at the rim. Pow! With the left hand and a foul.
Welcome to the Chase Down Podcast, part of the Cavs media family. I'm your host, Justin Rowan. The Chase Down is presented by Fubo, the official streaming partner of the Cavs. Watch over 350 channels of live sports and TV, including Bally Sports Ohio without cable. There's no cost and no commitment. Try for free at FuboTV.com/Cavs. We are here live at Rocket Mortgage FieldHouse at the Caesars Sportbook. This is my first time being here, and I can't believe what a beautiful venue this is.
A swanky venue indeed.
It is really, really nice up here, and a perfect spot for us to kick off our pregame coverage before Game 2 against the Orlando Magic. I could not be more excited to be here today, Carter. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. I'm just so damn proud of you. You memorized the fubo read so well. It was really seamless. You really are a trained professional at this point.
You know what? I do what I can, and the Cavs are trained professionals as well, and that is why I'm excited to see what adjustments we see going into Game 2. We talked about how neither team had a particularly good shooting game in Game 1. Kind of expect this game with a normal start time to have everybody else in their normal rhythm, but we all know after Game 1 of a series, the adjustments start to come into consideration. And what are you looking out for heading into Game 2?
Well, one thing I think we should always kind of remind the viewers of is that the great tweet from Trey Kirby, which is after Game 1 of a playoff series, if you win, you feel like you're never going to lose. If you lose, it feels like you're never going to win. So,
right.
One thing I would say is the Magic did not bring their best effort in Game 1. They had one of the worst half-court net ratings that you'll ever see. One of the worst half-court offensive ratings that you'll ever see. They did not shoot well. They shot bad even for Orlando.
Yep.
I expect a counterpunch here. The team that loses always has something to autopsy. They always have something to learn from and pull from. And the Cavs are going to have to be ready for some real counterpunches.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what type of adjustments they make. I feel like both teams have things that are obvious that they feel like they can do a little bit better. For the Cavs, clean up those turnovers. A lot of Orlando's offensive success did come off of those turnovers. And I feel like both teams probably feel like they can bank on a better shooting night. But you did some great work prior to this podcast highlighting how the Cavs did a good job of funneling those open shots to the three-point shooters that you would want to have taking those shots, and I expect that to continue to be the game plan in Game 2.
Yeah, I think ultimately when you look at the tracking data, something that we always kind of look for is wide open threes allowed as kind of the bellwether for how well the defense is doing, and often when you look at how well the opposing team shot on those wide open threes, that kind of accounts for luck. And Orlando did not shoot well on any of their threes, including the wide open ones. They did get up 23 to the Cavs 10. So, if you're looking at that maybe neutrally, you might go, oh man, that means the Cavs got really, really lucky in Game 1. Orlando just needs to shoot a little bit better. And there certainly is something to that. Jalen Suggs, a 40% three-point shooter, doesn't make a single wide open three.
Yep.
And I believe he had three of those attempts. But when you really look at where the attempts were funneled, it was a lot of threes from Jonathan Isaac, from Paolo Banchero, from Franz Wagner, from Mo Wagner. These are guys that you're really okay shooting,
Yeah.
If you were a fan of this team during the Ty Lue era, that was kind of a hallmark of what he did. Think about all those wide open Lance Stevenson attempts that clanked off the side of the rim, and that was by scheme. In the playoffs, you're not going to just take away everything. And I think the Cavs are very smart in where they routed the Magic's offense, and more importantly, where they didn't allow the Magic offense to get loose. And, I think they're going to look to do the same again.
Yeah, I think so too. A lot of those threes did come from above the break, and obviously, it is the modern NBA. Three-point shooting is going to be one of those primary focuses, one of the things that everyone's looking at. And I'm interested to see, even though the Cavs game plan was so strong and defensively they did a great job, I'm interested to see if there's some tweaks to generate more open looks on their side, right? Like, are we using Mobley a little bit more as a playmaker, integrating him in those ways in order to get those open three-point looks? Because, the looks that they did get wide open, they cashed them in. But it's just about, continuing to find those soft spots in the Magic's defense that opens up opportunities.
Yeah, and I'm very interested to see kind of what levers they want to pull. Are they going to change up their matchups at all? We wondered if they might go with a Jalen Suggs on Darius Garland instead of Donovan Mitchell. Normally, conventional wisdom says put your best defender on the other team's best offensive player, but they very clearly were like, we want to keep the Cavs out of rhythm on offense. I thought it worked okay in game one. There were certainly stretches where Darius was turning the ball over quite a bit, but there were also possessions where the Cavs offense was able to get loose, and Donovan had, his best game inside the arc pretty much since post All-Star break. So I think ultimately it'll be interesting to see how much the Magic are like, hey, our defensive game plan was actually fine. We just want to change up what we're doing on offense.
Yeah, well, on the defensive end, the one change I could see is potentially them moving Jalen Suggs over to Donovan Mitchell rather than on Darius Garland. I get the philosophy. If you put Suggs on Garland, that's going to make it more difficult for him to get other people going, to make it more comfortable for them. They understand that Darius Garland is that engine of the Cavs offense, but it'll be interesting to see, do they continue to live with Donovan Mitchell one-on-one? Because, that is one of the most accomplished playoff scorers that there is, and, you can guard him straight up and hope that is enough, but, at some point you live with something until you can't, and I feel like Donovan Mitchell is the type of offensive player that can really kind of change the tempo and change the conversation.
And these are the kind of things that the Cavs had to solve for last year with Jalen Brunson, which is, hey, their overall offense isn't looking good, but every Jalen Brunson mid-ranger really sure hurts us.
Yeah.
So they had to kind of come up with those similar levels of concerns.
Absolutely, and we are thrilled to be joined right now by our very special guest, making her second appearance on the Chase Down podcast.
Friend of the pod. How about it?
A warm welcome, guys.
Now,
welcome back to Cleveland.
Thank you so much. I am thrilled to be here. It is so nice. I got sunburn. You can tell I'm coming from Canada when I'm getting sunburn in Cleveland.
I need to get outside then because first of all, it's beautiful outside.
Yes.
I didn't get.
You got sunburned yesterday.
Yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday. I was at the Guards game.
Okay.
The last couple innings got a little bit sunny, and
Man, I'm jealous though. I feel like I have not seen the sun in so long. So I'm glad that you guys have been able to take in some of the sights.
Of course.
I guess the sun is coming out, which is always a good thing, and that means we're hopefully good weather leads to a good tonight.
Yeah, I'm going to take that as a good omen. I'm a sunny side up guy to begin with, so when the sun is literally out, that makes it even easier. We were talking about some of the adjustments that we expect to see and things that we're really looking forward to in Game 2. What is something that you have an eye on, either from a Cavs or Magic standpoint, that you find will be, an X factor going into Game 2?
I'm really curious to see what the Magic does in terms of shooting the three and trying to get inside the paint. I feel like from what we watched last game, they settled for the three ball. Now, credit the Cavs defense because they forced them into a lot of situations that made them have to take those shots. But that's not the Magic's game. They're 30th in three-point makes. They're 29th in three-point attempts. And I think they attempted 37 threes last game. So that's not what they're trying to do. I expect them to be more aggressive in the paint here tonight. And then it's going to be a test for the Cavaliers' defense. I think it's going to take team defense because it can't just be Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. It's got to be a group effort in terms of trying to slow those guys down. So I'm curious to see those adjustments because I do believe that the Magic will look to be more aggressive inside. That's more their game, and they just kind of shied away from that in Game 1.
One thing I think we also might see is not just more aggression, but a little more creativity from them on the offensive. Like, these guys are mashers. That is their identity. They want to put their shoulder into your chest and knock you back a couple feet. But, there were also those possessions where George Niang is going chest to chest with Paolo Banchero. Yeah. I wonder if they're going to try to involve the Cavs' slower-footed defenders in a little bit more action, and there are no perfect solutions here against the Cavs personnel, that might work against a George Niang, but we saw Evan Mobley navigate super well as a big getting screened. So, I think that is going to be kind of the story of this series, probably for both teams, is there's not going to be a lot of silver bullets in my mind. It's like, oh, now we're going to score 140 tonight.
Right.
That's not what this is.
Yeah, constant adjustments, I think, it's going to be interesting to see how Jamal Mosley and JB Bickerstaff make those adjustments in game. I think JB did a great job last game of continuing to find ways to be more effective, even when the shots weren't falling. I don't think Mosley was able to be as effective, but again, I think we got to put in perspective, the Magic has 91 combined playoff games. So they're kind of the Cavaliers of last year,
Yep.
right? And 78 of those 91 games belong to Gary Harris and Joe Ingles. So the majority of their young players are experiencing this for the very first time, kind of like we saw the Cavaliers in Game 1 last year against the Knicks. So I'm interested to see what Game 2 brings. I still feel like the Cavaliers have a true advantage on this Magic team. They've got the experience. I think matchup-wise, they just have the ability to maybe be a little bit more creative offensively too. And the Cavs didn't hit shots either. So
Right.
we talk about how the Magic didn't hit shots, but the Cavs didn't make shots either. I don't expect the Cavaliers to make just 8 threes and some of them coming
Or
down the
miss,
stretch
like,
of the fourth
18
quarter.
in a row, I think they'd
exactly.
missed.
Yes. So I think we'll see a much different game here tonight.
Yeah, I think so often, especially in today's media climate, we become prisoners of the moment and we assume that the most recent thing we saw is the only version of what we're seeing. And you saw it even last night with the Oklahoma City Thunder in their first playoff experience, right? Like, you go through some pain. You go through, a feeling out process of understanding what you can and can't bring to the table in this setting. And I think the Cavs experience going through it last year is just such a leg up because you have a better understanding of what you can do to make a difference. Like Isaac Okoro, his shots weren't necessarily falling, but you felt him out there in a way you didn't necessarily feel him last year by his point of attack defense, the way that he was fighting and tipping out rebounds. Like, the Cavs are the smaller team, even though we do play with two bigs, but we still out-physicaled them. And I just feel like that experience is invaluable, even if it is a abbreviated playoff experience that they had from last year.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you about that. Obviously you're much closer to covering this team than we are from a very far distance. But there's always a lot of talk about physicality with every team, right? Especially this one going into this postseason after they got beat up a little bit last year. And we talked to Tristan Thompson midweek about how he feels like they need to throw that first punch. And then you look at the game on Saturday, and that first possession of the game, Darius Garland hits a hammer screen to open up Max Strus in the corner. It's like, okay, our smallest guy just set the strongest pick. How much have you seen that covering the team, just how much they are focusing on that level of physicality in the series?
There's no question. And all season long, JB and the team says, hey, we don't listen to the national media, but they are so aware of what happened a season ago, what the conversations were. Jared Allen spoke pretty bluntly about it just a few days ago.
God bless him for that.
Yes, he did.
I love that guy.
I appreciate that because he said, hey, the lights were a little too bright, but they're not going to be this time around, The Cavaliers took that to heart, and they, again, it's something that I think only comes with experience, right? Is you don't know until you go through it, and I think the Cavaliers just had to go through that last year. There has certainly been an emphasis on the physicality. I think the players they brought in this year also brought that. Max Strus is one of the toughest guys I've seen out there. George Niang has no problem, obviously, throwing his body around, talking trash, doing whatever he needs to do.
You don't think he's shy?
Oh, no. I wouldn't put George Niang and shy in the same sentence, I don't think. And then you got Tristan Thompson and Marcus Morris, who certainly, if the minutes are there for them, are going to make them count. So I think even last game, Niang and Strus were both plus 13, and they didn't hit a three.
Yeah.
So that shows their importance, their experience, what they're able to bring to this team. And having been Max going to the finals a season ago, George having gone to at least the second round, I think in 3 straight postseasons now, there's a lot of experience there that just a lot of the other Cavaliers don't have yet. So having them on the floor is so valuable in terms of being in those moments and knowing what needs to happen.
And it does feel like toughness is almost like an osmosis process,
Definitely.
Where they added guys to the roster who are tough, but none of that matters if Darius doesn't play physically, if Donovan doesn't play physically, if Evan and Jaren aren't being just as tough. You can't just be like, well, Marcus is here, so now we're tough. It has to be a collective effort, and I do think that's the value of adding those guys who have that kind of hard-nosed personality, which is that just kind of rubs off, I feel, over the course of a long season.
Definitely. I think we've seen that, too, throughout the year. These guys are feeding off of them, and Marcus has only been here for a few weeks, but Tristan's been, obviously, at the peak of the NBA championship level with this organization. So there's something unique about that. And the guys learning from them, being around them, it's something that they didn't necessarily have last year. But again, I think there's something about just having gone to the playoffs last year, getting that first feel, kind of getting punched in the mouth too.
Yeah.
And then
It's
being
important.
like, okay, that was not how we thought this was going to go, and we're not going to let that happen this time around. And I think we saw that in Game 1, even though they didn't play a pretty game. Neither team did, but the Cavaliers certainly didn't play the style of basketball that they're used to playing, and they still came out with a pretty dominant victory. I think that tells you a lot about where this team's mindset is and their approach and how they're heading into this series.
Yeah, I think sometimes as fans, we get self-conscious. We don't want the players that we're rooting for to have weak moments and to make mistakes. But really, like, personally, I learn more from my mistakes than my successes. Like, that is where
you've had a lot of them, buddy.
I have tons of them. I probably have about 5 already in this podcast. But you learn more from that experience. And I think one guy that really stood out in Game 1 was Evan Mobley. Just how much more comfortable he looked on every single offensive possession, whether it was operating in the short roll, taking those threes that were available, and really punishing those switches and mismatches. Going into Game 2, do you expect an even heavier dose of Evan Mobley? Because, it was a little bit quiet in the second half where, there wasn't as many possessions going through him, and I really feel like the Cavs' best offense was when the guards were finding him and playing off of that Evan Mobley as the hub.
I completely agree. I think they're going to look to feed him early, because I think it just opened up the game for everyone else when he was so fluid in the offense. Obviously, his versatility is one of his greatest strengths right now. He threw the Magic bigs off completely when he knocked down those 2 threes. Then they're completely off balance. They don't know what to do. So getting Evan Mobley involved early and often, I truly believe, will be a big part of the game plan. Now, they got to keep him active throughout the game. Like you mentioned, he did go quiet in that second half. I do believe that Orlando is going to make adjustments, and they're going to try to be more physical with Evan probably earlier than they were last game too. So that's something to pay attention to. But over the last few weeks, I really feel like we've been seeing a much more aggressive Evan Mobley. It's
been under the radar as a storyline since he came back from injury.
No question. He's come in with almost a different approach, and he is taking, honestly, no prisoners. He's been going to the basket, been super physical. That's going to be to this team's advantage. He's got to play physical here tonight.
Yeah, and I've said this a couple times, but he is the only real spot where the Cavs do have the size advantage up and down the lineup. This is a huge Orlando team, and he's going to be guarded by a 6'9" Franz Wagner, a 6'10" Paolo Banchero oftentimes, and he needs to match those matchups. And just as importantly, when they do get a switch, he's got to post that switch, and he's got to catch, be decisive, and finish.
How many times was Cole Anthony on him last game?
I'll tell you what, I bet I noticed every time.
Yeah.
He was getting deep catches.
So many times. And so the Cavaliers did a great job of making those switches, making those adjustments, putting Evan in those situations. Again, Game 1, you expect there to be adjustments. Obviously, Orlando is not going to want to put Cole Anthony or another small guard in those situations. That was definitely discussed on tape yesterday. So I am curious to see how they respond. But the Cavaliers, again, like you mentioned, I think they've got to be aggressive with Evan early.
And, it's funny because we've had such a weird season where guys have been in and out of the lineup. It's almost a little bit of a reminder of, oh, yeah, this is the team. Like, this is why this lineup construction makes sense, because Orlando might try to be a little more physical with Mobley, or they might try bringing 2 to the ball with Donovan Mitchell, but you can only do that to one of those guys, right? Like, you can only double team so many players, and when you have Jared Allen, who's grown as a playmaker, when you have Evan Mobley, who's grown as a playmaker, when you have, Garland and Mitchell, every adjustment they make, there is a counter within this Cavs starting lineup, because you have some redundancies in terms of abilities of other guys to step up with that. How great is it to just finally see what this lineup is healthy altogether?
I feel like we've been waiting all season long. It feels like since really Game 1, we've been like, okay, this is what it could be. And then throughout the whole year, it was one after the other after the other. I saw recently, actually, I think there was a list of the amount of games missed per team, and the Cavaliers were the only playoff team in the top 15.
Right.
There's so many injuries throughout the lineup all season long. Now, of course, give credit to the depth of this team and what they were able to accomplish, and how even when they come in, you got to be watching those guys. You got to watch Sam. You got to watch George. They can make you pay. But the Cavaliers' depth in their starting lineup is so important to this team's success. I wish we got a little bit more of a taste of it in the regular season, and we weren't really getting to really feel it now. But I think that's why the Cavs, I don't want to say are maybe catching people off guard, but because so many teams did not see this lineup together throughout the season, they don't really know what to expect. And when they're healthy and they're really rolling, my God, this team is hard to stop.
Yeah, the one person who we didn't really talk about post-game after game one that I think deserves a lot of credit in crafting these rotations is JB Bickerstaff, who, if you really look at the rotation data, which Plot and Roll on Twitter posts the most amazing visualizations of this, JB basically said, we don't got a lot of continuity, but one group that does is Max Strus, Donovan Mitchell, and Jared Allen. They did not play basically a minute not on the floor with the three of those guys. They outscored Orlando by 11 in those minutes. Those three were the only trio for the Cavs to play over 1,000 minutes this year. And like the fact that JB saw that and was like, all right, this is the group that I'm going to lean on to carry me through the healthy portion of the game, I thought was really, really smart because playoff rotations are hard. It's really challenging to kind of play that Jenga game to get guys minutes, get guys opportunities, and still kind of have a belief system. I felt like that trio really grounded them through the game.
I totally agree, and I think one of the most efficient rotations in the NBA this season was those three with Dean Wade and Isaac Okoro when the Cavaliers were piecing together what they could without Evan Mobley and Darius Garland. So like you mentioned, those three having so much experience together, there's a continuity that you build. You understand where they're going. I feel like specifically with Donovan and Jarrett, we have seen that connection grow so much this season. It's going to be hard to stop a group when there's that much experience together, and having those three on the floor with Max, like we mentioned, who has been to almost the pinnacle of where this team wants to go.
Yeah.
He brings a toughness, a creativity. He doesn't need to be a scorer. Like he was grabbing rebounds left and right. He just wants to do whatever it takes for this team to win. So having that experience with those two, I think is incredible. And again, kudos to JB for taking those numbers into consideration, seeing that how those three in particular play together and making sure they're on the floor as much as possible.
Yeah, well, one of the keys with a rotation is knowing when someone needs to sub out, and you have pregame coverage.
I do.
So I think you need that breather. You need that breather before the home stretch to close out. So we really appreciate you coming on. It's great to talk to you. We've enjoyed your coverage all year, and all the best the rest of the playoffs.
Thank you so much, guys. Glad that you're back in Cleveland for this game, and hopefully we'll see you some more.
Yeah,
Thank you,
hey,
Kaylee. Appreciate
absolutely.
All right, go Cavs, guys.
Go Cavs.
Well, that was a lot of fun. Really appreciate Kaylee for coming on and talking with us. What else do we have to cover? Like right now, I'm just so excited. The nerves of this game are kicking in. I'm just excited to see what the veterans do. You know, Max Strus and George Niang, we've talked about how they impact the game in other ways, but I'm just excited to see if one of them, or both of them preferably, catch fire in this game.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see kind of how they can get clean looks. Something we talked about after game one was the fact that, Darius and Donovan just killed the Magic in floater range. That is where they got into the soft part of the Magic defense in that drop, and were able to, yield a ton of benefits. This is going to be one of those spots where, again, the Magic really have to decide what they're willing to give up. Because, again, the Cavs did not have a great offensive performance in game one. So if you're of the opinion, like, hey, our scheme is fine, we just need to score better, maybe you don't change much, and it's still hard for the Cavs to get off threes. One opportunity for a Strus or a Niang, or really any of these perimeter shooters for the Cavs, is if they start collapsing and sending that third body to mess up the rhythm in that floater range, or they send a second guy all the way up to the level, or trap or blitz 25, 30 feet from the basket, that's where you start getting those leakouts. You think of that, that killer pick and pop two-man game between Darius and Donovan, where Donovan kind of hit, I thought, the game ender from three. Those kind of things open up if the Magic start sending more help. So I'm just fascinated to see how much Orlando thinks they need to change things. Something we were talking about before we went live is, Jonathan Isaac is kind of the perimeter cheat code for them. Yep. I thought his ISO defense possessions were better than anyone on Orlando's. Is there a world in which they say, hey, you're going from guarding fives to guarding twos? Welcome to the Donovan Mitchell show, Jonathan. and that has a lot of spillover effects down the rotation. That means maybe you have to go ultra big and bench Gary Harris and start Wendell Carter Jr. Like, it's not that the Magic don't have levers to pull. It's just like last year with the Cavs, every lever, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. It's going to be a matter of, do the ends justify the means to make big tweaks like that? Or again, do they just need to score more?
Right, and you bring Jonathan Isaac out to the perimeter, that's going to open up the interior, right? And that goes back to what I was talking about, where you can only bring 2 to so many people, right? Eventually you run out of bodies, and it'll be interesting to see what those adjustments are, how prepared the Cavs are for those adjustments. I couldn't be more excited. It is almost time for us to find out what is going to be happening in this game. We will be going post-game as well on the Chase Down podcast. Big thanks to everyone that tuned in live. We really do appreciate you guys. Make sure you like and subscribe to the Cavs channel so you never miss when we are going live. If you listen via podcast, make sure you leave us a rating, leave a review, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, and help cook those books. If you want to be part of our Discord, send a screenshot of your review to chasedownpod@gmail.com. However you choose to support us, we really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys are staying safe out there. Until next time, go Cavs.
This crowd rises to its feet. Vaccaro slammed it home. Garland left wing, 3 ball. Perfect. Garland went to the lane, lobbed to Mobley. Pow! And Allen blocked the shot at the rim. Pow! With the left hand and a foul.